The ANC Womens League is preparing for its elective conference, which will take place in just over a month. The National Task Team earlier announced that a proposal had been made for 2 new positions to be included. Let's speak to the League's Maropene Ramokgopha, who's joining us tonight. A very good evening to you, ma'am. Welcome to the program. Are you conference ready?
Good evening, and thank you for having us. Yes, definitely we are ready.
And when you say you are ready, what have you had to do to get to that point? Because it's not been a smooth process for the Women's League. That is why there is a task team in place.
Well, if you may be reminded, remember that we were put in place in June. And ever since then, we've been putting structures in place from branch to region to the provinces, and we have that all over the country. Currently, we already have 2,980 branches. Most of them are over 50, and in terms of membership, because our membership is 50, and to a certain extent, 25%, over 25% is like over 100, so meaning double what we have. So we have been able to put all structures in place so that we can be able to go to conference. We then now, immediately after that, went through a process of verifying our membership, and we used the structures of the ANC to actually ensure that we do a verification of our membership, because before you become a member of the ANC Women's League, you must first be a member of the ANC. And immediately after that, when we're done with our verification and our audit process of members, we then now realize that we now have 70% of branches that are needed, in fact, for us to go to conference. We put 9 committees in place that are conference preparatory committees. We've been working, it's just that we haven't been coming to media. And now we are ready. The date is set from the 17th to the 19th of June. We will be going to conference.
Let's speak then about the 2 additional roles that there's been a call for them to be created, at least going forward as per this conference happening in June. What would be the benefit of that to the Women's League?
The 2 additional roles haven't really been processed, because the process is that there must be someone who would write a submission. It must be seconded. So that's why we don't have a secondment. We're still waiting for that. So it was going to go to be discussed by branches. Then we would then now see if we will do a constitutional amendment or not. So we're waiting, obviously, for our electoral committee to be able to tell us if there's been any secondment for constitutional amendment. If there's no one seconding the proposal that was done by the province of Northwest, then it means that we would not qualify to do a constitutional amendment. Should there be a seconder, then branches will then now have to discuss what would those 2 additional positions do. But thus far, we don't have anything like that. It is still a process that would then now follow after the electoral committee has processed all the submissions that would come from branches, provinces, and structures of the ANC.
And you
Women's
say,
League, yes.
Ma'am, in conclusion today, in the statement that you released post your meeting, that as the ANC Women's League, you remain a critical organizer and mobilizer of the motive forces of the National Democratic Revolution, women. Are you really, in the broader sense of South Africa, when you consider, on issues such as gender-based violence, for example, women empowerment, when people think of championing those causes, it's not the ANC Women's League that comes to the mind of the majority of South Africans. In fact, people are increasingly looking to activists and NGOs.
In my view, it is actually the ANC Women's League that is pushing government to actually be in that direction, because we work with NGOs. In fact, in my view, we're the only political wing of a political party that is actually championing the plight of women. I'm definitely sure of that. So we work with different institutions, different NGOs and NPOs. However, as it relates to government, it is us, and in fact, who's putting the government to account, and also being able to push government to a certain direction to ensure that the issues of emancipation of women and gender-based violence are mainstreamed in the programs of government. We may not be calling media to tell them all the time because it's not in our nature as ANC Women's League. We do work, and then will be celebrated on the ground. And you see that in how ANC Women's League is actually organized on the ground. It is for this reason that today everyone is surprised that within the space of 12 months, we've been able to have programs and campaigns, and we're ready to go to conference because women on the ground see the ANC Women's League as their home. There may not be influencers or women that are always on the media, but if you go on the ground, you'll be so surprised that the structures such as the Young Women Desk, Molo Makwelani, which are campaigns of the ANC Women's League, are actually very rife in terms of branch mobilization and community mobilization as a whole.
So it's really more of a grassroots level movement at this point, the ANC Women's League, right? Based on what you're saying.
No, yes, because we do believe that, first of all, the reason that we would always go to the NDR, it is because the NDR is a maximum program of the ANC or of the movement that seeks to create what you would call a national democratic society, which would speak to women, but also the issue of class would come in, where we would look at, you would say, the poor or the working class. I don't really want to get into the class issues, but that's where you find us the most grassroots. Yes, we do mobilize middle strata, we do mobilize other people, but our major issue is that you cannot be able to celebrate and see difference if you don't first check if that particular difference that you are putting in place is seen in the lowest structures of whatever it is that you are trying to emancipate.
How effective
so yes, indeed, you are correct.
How effective then are your interventions when you consider that whether you speak to a wealthy, middle class or poor South African women, the one thing they all have in common, perhaps to differing degrees, is that they feel increasingly unsafe in this country because crime is at such alarming levels. Economically, in terms of opening up economic opportunities, they all agree that there's not been enough done. And in fact, when you're poor, the space for work is closing even further.
Look, we have been able to play part in making sure that the issues of gender-based violence are fully funded. And we also would then buy government, and we're also mobilizing private sector to actually play part. And we do believe that at least there is a difference, and our police stations are starting to be more open to ensuring that at least when women go to police stations, they do at least get help. What we have been pushing right now is that we have been saying to our law enforcement that we don't only want you to react, we also want you to put in place systems that would be able to help us to prevent gender-based violence. So they are effective. I'm very sure that before the end of in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, as we were speaking to the law enforcement institutions, you will be hearing some interventions that they are putting in place precisely because of what we said. But obviously, if you are aware that during the gender-based violence summit, there have been commitments that have been made by government, and we are seeing that indeed now that there's a new budget that is being put in place, a lot has been put as well, and a lot of things have been shifting in terms of ensuring that what we are pushing for gender-based violence to be mainstreamed in whatever it is that government is doing do take place. Now, the issue of the economy, of course, has been cutting across all economies, and not only in South Africa. We all have been struggling, but we have been pushing to make sure that the SDR, the 350, which might not be much, at least people are able to access that. And we still are pushing to make sure that the issues of the grants that are usually being given to people who are our constituency in the main should not be removed, but they should actually be able to act as a gap while we're still waiting for processes of ensuring that jobs are created.
Right.
So indeed, yes, we are engaging government and private sector for the sake of our own constituency.
And Ms. Ramokgopha, you're also a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee, 2nd DSG, Deputy Secretary General. I will then ask for your indulgence because there is a big national issue that's being discussed tonight. I'm sure you've seen reports around the Americans claiming through their ambassador that this country basically supplied weapons to Russia for its war in Ukraine. The presidency now saying that an inquiry will be established by a retired judge to get to the bottom of these allegations. As a member of the NEC, has the phone been ringing with conversation about this? And if so, what are you all discussing at this point? And did you have any inkling that this was to come?
No, definitely. Remember that before I was the second DSG, I used to be the advisor of the president on international relations. So I was aware of that claim. Obviously, there is nothing tangible that says that that actually happened, and we're really happy. And we're happy that there will be an inquiry that will be put in place so that we can put this matter to rest once and for all. And if the claims are true, we will take actions. Obviously, if they are not true, we'll also be able to clarify. So I would say that let us allow the processes that are put in place by the president to actually unfold, so that when we then now come to respond or discuss this particular matter, we do it based on empirical evidence and something that is tangible, and which is what we have been saying anyway to those that have been making these claims. It is for this reason, again, of course, that we have been having the ANC government had also sent an envoy, a special envoy, to the USA. So I do believe that there is systems that are put in place for discussion to take place, so that exchange in terms of information can actually take place. But I don't think that I really need to talk more about that, because it's not my space. However, I was aware, and I do believe that we need to give this process of an inquiry space to actually unfold, so that we speak on something that is not hearsay, but it is something that we have evidence on.
But why wouldn't a sovereign, organized state with proper record keeping know on the spot whether it's supplied weapons to another country, a friendly nation at that, in the form of Russia? Why do we need an inquiry? Why isn't there a record that government can simply go to and say whether this has happened or not? Because there's not been a denial tonight.
The records we have doesn't say that we did it, so that is why we need to put an inquiry, so that we can understand why are the Americans saying what they are saying. As I already said, I don't think this is my space to actually discuss this, because the issues of foreign relations and foreign affairs are very critical to our country, and I wouldn't want to be speaking on a matter that presidency should actually be leading on. So let us allow presidency to communicate on this, and I do believe that you will get information once we are able to be saying that we are ready to actually respond on this. So let presidency do what it's supposed to do, and they will communicate to you.
Should they not have communicated before the Americans? Because now, basically what the presidency is saying, that the ambassador, Brigadier, has got ahead of himself, and they don't appreciate the way in which he's communicated this. Could it not have been avoided if South Africa had simply gone public with this before we heard it from a third source as a nation?
But we cannot, and you don't expect presidency to communicate something they don't know of. Anyone can come up and say that they've seen South African operatives or whatever that you want to say in Afghanistan. Are we going to come out and say?
Except it's not just anyone, man. It's another foreign government that's making the allegation. It's not Timbekile.
Yes, indeed. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Anyone can come, whether it's Russia or it's USA, who comes and say that they've got something, will say that give us information so that we can ascertain that what we are saying took place, so that we can take action. So we can't just say someone come and say, hey, Maropene, for example, someone stole your pen, and say, oh, then I go and say, oh, someone stole my pen. I'll have to check if the pen indeed has been stolen so that I can open a case. So give government time to process this, so that we don't come and answer or communicate something, then later on it's been withdrawn. What will we say? So we have to communicate things that we've got empirical evidence on. And as I already said, it's not my place to actually talk about this. So let us allow presidency, as the people that are responsible for foreign relations and things like this, to actually communicate to you based on the processes that would have unfolded because of the structures and methods that they've put in place, to be able to get to the bottom of what the Americans are actually saying.
well, it'll be interesting to see why it is then, if government wasn't aware of any such agreement to supply this, that it may or may not have happened. But for now, I appreciate your indulgence, ma'am. Maropene Ramokgopha, part of the national task team that's building up to the ANC Women's League conference, also speaking to us tonight about the breaking news that we've just heard, the presidency addressing a claim by the American ambassador to South Africa that this country supplied, not allegations, but weapons, pardon me, to Russia to aid in its war effort in Ukraine.